but our next guest has sifted through the data and says the recent pockets of strength are largely a product of pent-up demand, which is not a bad thing. Why is that a bad thing, David Crow, Chief Economist of the National Association of Home Builders?
It's not a bad thing at all. It's a good thing that we're finally seeing people come out and start buying houses after probably 3 or 4 years of waiting.
But why does it make it less positive or less relevant, or does it?
Well, it doesn't make it less relative. By saying we're not going to gain momentum this year, I mean that we will continue to grow, but you can't quite get that spark going until you solve some of the other problems that are still out there. One of them being it's very difficult for buyers to get a mortgage. Another one is that appraisals are often below the actual asking price. And then finally, we still do have, in some markets, competition from foreclosures.
Right. That's interesting. I mean, on the other side, we are seeing that there's a lot of investment going into houses at certain places, and there's 20, 30 investors lined up for single properties. I guess if you add everything together, we're much better off than we were a year ago. But you're saying there's some systemic things that need to be addressed.
Right. Certainly we're much better than we were a year ago. We increased about 25%, 11 over 12, and I'm expecting about the same percentage increase in 13. That's continuing to grow. It just isn't gaining that momentum that we usually see in a recovery. We also are starting to face rising prices, and some of that investment furor will dissipate as prices continue to rise and those distressed properties aren't bargains anymore.
Yeah. What do we do? What do we do about making it easier for people to get mortgages? What do we do about what can we tell the appraisers to do?
Well, the National Association of Home Builders has been working on that. Don't use distressed sales. There are a sufficient number of arm's length consumer-to-consumer sales so that they can be used as comparables. Use appraisers that know the local market. Follow some of the prescriptions that are in the appraisal guidelines, often not used because basically we're looking for the cheaper and cheaper provider in that service.
Yeah, and then, okay, the Fed is, we've been at zero. They've, QE3. What do we do to make it easier for people to get mortgages?
Well, first of all, we need to clarify what some of the regulations are going to be out of the statute. A few of them have come out, but we don't know what all of them are going to be. So that leaves mortgage originators in the dark as to exactly what will be considered a safe mortgage, where can they avoid potential lawsuits afterwards. We need to clarify what we're going to do with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Right now, that's still completely unknown. Will there be one? Will the government participate at all in the mortgage market, or will it leave it completely to the private market? Those things left undetermined leave enough uncertainty out there that those that are willing to lend for mortgages charge a premium. If it's not in the interest rate, it's in the higher thresholds.
What would your organization do if we decided to end the interest rate or the mortgage deduction?
We would fight it to the tooth and nail.
I mean, we haven't.
At what rate?
This is the idea. Yeah, for everybody, or there's no level where we could do it.
No, I think our members right now believe that's not a way to either save tax money or help cure the housing market.
But $1 million, $800,000, $500,000, there's no number?
I think there are other ways to address budget deficits without attacking the tax advantages to homeownership.
Have you studied everybody thinks there's a different way to do it, that it shouldn't be their constituency that's touched.
That's right.
Have you studied?
That's right, and you think it's not your constituency that should be touched too. I mean, if we're talking about compromise in Washington and we're talking about everybody putting something in, is it a non-starter to say homes or mortgages over $500,000 shouldn't have the same tax-exempt status?
Well, there's a counter to every one of those proposals. If you were to reduce the cap, almost all of that pain would come from the high-cost market. So you would hurt the markets in California and along the East Coast, and virtually no one else.
You could say that about every tax policy out there. I mean, you could twist and turn. Is there anywhere that you could give or bend on any of this?
That's not what our members tell us, no.
David, have you studied what happened in Canada?
Canada has a lot of different policies. It's not just that they have no mortgage interest deduction. They don't have nearly the taxation at the local level that the U.S. has. And they've had a process for that being their case for a long period of time. Our tax system has allowed this to be in effect since the tax system existed.
In the UK, they phased it out over the period of 10 to 12 years or something.
Yes, they did, and now their first-time home ownership age is much older than it used to be. It's harder for the young people to get into
Do you think that
homes.
there are other areas that should be attacked? I mean, what about charitable giving? Is that okay, or should that be protected as well?
We're not ready to bargain with other sectors of the tax system.